All righty. Good evening, everybody. I am so sorry for our extremely delayed start. We were just saying, well, Greg actually said, if the president can be late, I suppose so can we. But for the past today's session and Sunday, everybody except for us were on time. I'm sorry. I am going to blame this on my internet connection tonight. So I'm really sorry. Luckily now I'm pausing as well. So you see, I'm not having to do this internet connection tonight. I'm sorry about that. But anyway, welcome everybody. Thank you so much. Sorry to have kept you waiting. But thank you so much for joining us tonight with the level 3 regulations that came out and that is available right now. That's fantastic and exciting news, I think, especially for estate agents that's able to work under level 3. That's exciting stuff. But Bruno, Greg, thank you so much for bearing with me while I struggled to get us live. So hi, good evening. It's fun. 2 evenings in a row now on webinars. That's which swear we don't have lives, eh?
No, you think.
So, Bruno, let's talk about it. What's the most exciting thing about the regulations? Do you want to share it, or do we want to talk about it first?
I suppose we can share it for now. And unfortunately, I can't share it. You need to enable it for me, or just share yours.
Brilliant. Let me. It might take a week, but I'll share.
I suppose in the meantime, so obviously the regulations reflect what people generally had expected. So it's like from an economic stimulation perspective, pretty much a lot is now allowable. The regulations, as opposed to the way that they were drafted previously, where certain things were allowed, the regulations are actually done now in the opposite way, where they exclude certain things from happening. Which kind of means that everything else will be permitted unless it falls within that scope. And that scope isn't actually as broad as one would actually imagine. It's quite specific. So they do have a table, specific economic exclusions, and they go through each one of these to explain what isn't allowed, and obviously touch on things like gatherings and the bigger things that we need to worry about. So I feel like Silna mentioned, from my side, the most relevant provisions with respect to the property industry is the fact that property practitioners in general would be able to get back to work now. So it doesn't specifically say, or at least I didn't notice it say anything restricting the construction and renovation. So that seems to be something that we can start working on now. Repair work, obviously Solna mentioned estate agents, so that's a big one. Nothing here actually speaks about it, so the assumption is that it is allowed. Property inspectors, you name it. So pretty much all our colleagues are going to be able to get back, back into the normal running of things.
Fantastic. I am not even going to lie. My technological situation is absolutely mind-blowing tonight. That is beautiful.
It's coming up now, Silna.
That's working. Yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah, I have other good qualities, guys. I miss Rowan already. It's only been like the second one and I'm already messing up. Yeah. Alrighty, so we've got it. We've got our hotspots. Remember the old days when we got excited about the term hotspot, like, yay, where's the password? That's not a thing right now. But we can see what the hotspots are. I think something important, I had this discussion with somebody earlier today, and they said, but it's weird, some of the numbers in these areas aren't that high. And I think it's actually important to know that it's obviously about the infection rate, that something is classified as a hotspot or not. So even if it looks like there's not a lot of people, if the infection is spreading quicker in one area compared to another, that is the hotspot. So at least now we know what the hotspots are. I'm going to skip through the majority of the regulations up to regulation 33.4b, which is obviously very relevant to everybody. So a big important thing about regulation 33, movement of people, obviously everybody is still supposed to stay at home and as at home as they possibly can to avoid the spread of the virus, obviously. But then people are allowed to move. Persons traveling for the purposes of moving to a new place of residence. So it's, do you agree with me, guys? There's no reference to what the basis of the move is, whether it's a lease agreement, it's a sale, or even, and I think this is to our conversation, Greg, I think this is going to be something you agree with. I mean, you might agree with the other things as well, but this one specifically, if we cancel an agreement or if you demand that somebody vacates, this provision definitely allows that somebody has to vacate, and if they don't, we can obviously evict them. Do you agree with me on that one?
Absolutely.
I do.
So, persons traveling for the purposes of moving to a new place of residence or caring for an immediate family member. Now, I don't know how wide that one is. What is your opinion on that?
Sure.
I must say, I feel it's wide enough to, for instance, if you have elderly parents, you would be in terms of this, be allowed to, for instance, buy groceries and take them groceries, things like that, because I think the more the regulations are eased at this stage, the more we want more vulnerable groups that will be more affected by the virus. We want them to stay home even more. So I do believe this will allow for movement like that. I don't think this regulation means pack your stuff and go camping with immediate family members that you care for. But I think caring for immediate family members could very well mean dropping off groceries.
So it is. Restrictive in the sense where they had to specify specifically the caring for. That's something that even in the past was being done. So I think now they just kind of put everything together and said, if you're moving to a new place of residence, go for it. And it plays into what Greg said the other day, especially when it came to evictions. Now you can move back in with your parents, you can move back in with your friends. So the argument that alternative accommodation might be an issue isn't actually an issue anymore, because the person can go wherever they want as long as they're going to live there. And then it kind of brings it back down to earth and says, well, also the caring of other people. So it has to be a caregiver, somebody that's vulnerable, that requires attention. And yeah, it's the basics, but it's pretty much all that we really need.
That's
I think that's right.
But the joy, what makes me excited here is, provided that such a person is in possession of an affidavit which corresponds with the Form 6 of Annexure A. So I'll show it to you guys just now, but I think something very important on the previous regulations, the ones from the 14th of May, the permit, the wording in the permit wasn't as smooth as we would like it to be. But here it says an affidavit that corresponds with Form 6. So the intention is not, it must be exactly the same. It must be in line with Form 6. And why this is cool is now it's just an affidavit. Doesn't have to have a police stamp, doesn't have to be approved by a court official. So why this is fabulous is, to get an affidavit is obviously something much easier than having to go to the police, stand in a queue, do the whole thing. You can get this affidavit by just printing it, going to a commission of oaths and having it commissioned. So let me show you the form, the very last page of the regulations. We will post the regulations as well, I promise. And now there's nothing. This is my life. This is my life today. This is how slow my internet is, and has been the whole day, and I'm still not swearing. How impressed are we? This is Form 6 that they're referring to. So basically pretty simple affidavit form: name, surname, ID number, address of place of residence, province of residence, that's it. And then this is the portion that will have to be amended for the purpose of the affidavit. I hereby declare under oath that are moving to a new place of residence that require travel across a province during alert level 3 can change to district or within a hotspot, or this sentence can change to say, I have to go and care for an immediate family member. So this can change. It may change in terms of Regulation 33, definitely, and you just have it commissioned by a Commissioner of Oath. Remember, a Commissioner of Oath, the joy of that is there's a bunch of us there out there. All that means are ex officio commissioners of oath. Accountants are commissioners as well. And then you have other people that specifically applied to be commissioners. So there's commissioners of oath out there all over the world. Who else is commissioners?
Just out of interest, I only noticed this now, but if you go back to
Yes.
page 19, note 1 says,
Really?
This affidavit may only be...
It's not just go back quickly.
Okay, well, there we go. Oh, there
It's the last page, Bruno.
Okay, so the page before that.
Mm-hmm.
If you read note 1, so on top of the table,
Mm-hmm.
The affidavit may only be sworn to or affirmed at a magistrate's court or police station.
Oh, good point. Well spotted, but that's very interesting.
Yeah, do you
That
think
seems weird.
Yeah, it's very
That
weird.
seems weird.
I'm not sure that that complies with the Commissioner of Oaths Act.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Why can only those Commissioner of Oaths commission the document and not us?
Exactly, because if it's a permit, because also your magistrate court officials usually aren't commissioners.
And it's not a permit.
Yeah, it's not a permit, it's an affidavit. So in as far as it goes to affidavit, the rules of the Act, as you rightly said, Greg, applies.
Strange.
Well, now everybody can see what happens if we suddenly read a sentence that surprises us. This is the, how would we suggest we handle this?
Well, cautiously, I would say that this has to be commissioned at a police station. The police can't refuse it because it is just an affidavit. So as opposed to a permit, where one could possibly argue that the police had some kind of discretion. Being an affidavit, there is no discretion. It's an affidavit. It can say whatever, as long as it's an affidavit. So that's one benefit, is you can walk in, get it signed, commissioned, and no one can say anything about it. The downside is, if you're going to be cautious, you're going to need to go to a police station or magistrate's court. If you want to be brave, try any other Commissioner of Oaths and argue that that would have obviously had to be the intention. The problem that I'm seeing is, why would this specifically say may only? It seems very like,
it's a control play yet again. But I think you're right. I think you're right, Bruno, from the point of view that it purports to give that authority only to magistrates, court, or police station. The irony being, the prospect of an attorney commissioner of oaths actually looking at what's given to him or her is so much higher. You know, we all know, you go, someone stamps it, it's real formality. I don't know. It seems strange. I don't think it'll last.
Yeah. And my bigger concern is that, I mean, a clerk of a court isn't a commissioner. So then it would be potentially something like have it commissioned with an attorney and take it to the magistrate court to have it stamped. Because if you take it to a magistrate court, who's going to commission it for you? It doesn't really make sense to me in any way, shape, or form.
It's cumbersome. It's going to annoy people, but at least the police station's still there. So I suppose we've gotten used to it by now.
Exactly. So what we're saying is the form looks new. Let's talk about the permits that was issued under the regulations prior to today's regulations. So say theoretically you do already have a permit, you were planning to move next weekend, now this is coming out, that the new regulations will not affect the validity of the existing permit. So you carry on with your life as normal. The interesting thing about the difference now on an affidavit compared to the permit, I do suspect what was happening is, I think the police somewhere realized that people are now randomly completing dates and stuff, so they want to bring in a commission element to it, an affidavit, and the oath sworn to the truth element, which makes me think, if you do this, if you have it commissioned by an attorney and you take it to a magistrate court to have it stamped, it should be more than sufficient. But I think, again, rather to safety side, if you do have a permit issued under the previous regulations, definitely use it. You don't have to go back to the police, don't have to go back to a court. But I think to just be overly brave and run around with an affidavit now that is not stamped by a court officer or then the police. If you're anyway going to the police, you might as well commission there.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. So it doesn't say anything about how to deal with permits, but I suppose it's implied that if it's silent on it, the permits would obviously still be applicable. It would have to specifically say that any permits that were issued were withdrawn. So that's just something for people to remember. Permits can still be used.
Definitely. This one is also interesting, the permit that allows people to travel across provincial or district lines for school purposes. So learners, also official stamp. So again, police and the courts. I think we just need to caution everybody, when you do go to a court or you do go to the police station, please be prepared. There's going to be a bunch of people. So go early in the morning and wear your mask and take your hand sanitizer and all that alcohol you can get your hands on in a spray bottle with you, just to keep yourself safe. Now we're going from the wrong side of the regulations, but while I'm here, this is something I'm already getting questions on. The specific economic exclusions, short-term home sharing, leasing, letting, leasing, rental for leisure purposes. We've had this discussion. I think leisure is simply, Bruno, as you rightly said, for holiday purposes. Yeah. So your Airbnbs for holiday is excluded. Are we saying people can use Airbnbs for business travel, or for instance, a student that gave up his occupation and now he has to return to varsity? Are we saying short-term rentals are allowed as long as you don't look like you're having fun, so as long as it's not for holiday purposes?
Exactly. Yeah,
I think sorry, carry on, Bruno.
No, you go for it.
I was just saying that the Mrs. Zuma did specifically say in announcing these that business hotel use was legitimized. That can only mean that the same would apply for the sort of concepts we talk about now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
What is our position on, from the regulations? This is the only exclusions we have, so we know for a fact estate agents can operate in full. So incoming, outgoing inspections can be done by the estate agent. Estate agents can show properties. They can function in full. That is the one part. You guys agree with me on that one, right?
Yeah.
Estate agents go wild, go right, all the commission you can. I think there's a lot of people that's going to move now. So I wish all the estate agents well and extremely safe business with high commission. That's my wish for you guys in level 3. But my question is now domestic workers. So apparently we're still not cutting hair. Sorry, Greg, you were sad about the hair cutting like 3 weeks ago already.
Yeah, it's starting to get a bit 80s in here.
I'm the only one of the 3 of us that doesn't really aren't too bothered by this, but it's very unfortunate. But what's our position on domestic staff? So the conversation we had in previous webinars, where the question was, on a tenant moving out, can you get a domestic worker in to do the cleaning? I can't see exclusion for domestic staff and gardening services.
No, I think it's fine.
It's an interesting
question.
It's
fine, yeah. I do think it's fine.
And
also, just to throw
then,
something. Sorry, yeah.
Okay, sorry. Now I just messed this up. No, go on.
Just to throw something to the mix here, which is quite interesting. If you go to page 9 of the PDF, so to be page 8 of the actual regulations. So the clause 39 speaks of places and premises closed to the public, and subparagraph F refers to hotels, lodges, bed and breakfast, timeshare facilities and resorts and guest houses, except to the extent that these facilities are required for accommodation by the remaining tourists, person for work purposes, and persons in quarantine or isolation. So it's just to read together with the Airbnb. So they've, for some reason, they've separated the two, which seems, it doesn't seem very logical to me, but if you read them together, work purposes, hotels and all the rest, short-term rentals for work purposes would also make sense because it kind of falls within this ambit. They just threw it into a different section. So as long as it's not leisure, it looks like you're good to go. That shouldn't be an issue.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. On that topic, if we back at, where am I, 33, regular, I think everybody is now so confused by now with us skipping through this document. Luckily, this is sort of how we normally read things, like a little here, then you go back, and then, very interesting here. People are still saying, but let's quickly talk about sectional title, because until pretty much now, the regulation was, you're not going anywhere, you're staying right where you are in your house. This is where you are. Which would have meant that the body corporate couldn't leave shared areas, common property, for instance, parks and things like that in a sectional title complex. They weren't allowed to allow use of that. Now, my understanding here is because you can exercise any time between, what is that, between 6 and 6, right? Where's the exercise?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
I was just happy to see that. That's funeral.
Yeah, me too. All evidence to the contrary.
Between 6 and 6, you can exercise. You're still not allowed to exercise in groups, Greg. Please, 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 don't go.
I'm not a group. I'm an individual. I might look like a bloody group.
This day has been too long for all of us. So you can exercise from 6 to 6.
It says organized group. I am a disorganized group. I'm prepared to concede.
Well, we are a slightly disorganized group tonight. we need adult supervision.
Yep, not me.
So you can exercise from 6 to 6. Say, for instance, your complex has a park or something like that. Do you agree with me that, and as long as it's not organized, body corporates would be allowed to allow the residents to use those common property areas for exercise purposes?
Look, it seems sorry, go on, Greg.
Sorry, Bruno. I did notice there's a prohibition on beaches and something else.
And public parks.
But is it public parks? So I think private facilities, Bruno, I'm sure you're about to say they're on, and I agree with you.
Yeah, it's not public, so it's still a park. So it's questionable, but it is more restricted.
It's not a public park. A public park's a specific thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're a golfing estate, surely that means that you can use that facility in your complex.
It would seem so, yeah.
Exactly, because in a big way, it feels slightly nonsensical for the entire complex for everybody to go running the street instead of on extreme distance and really not controlled, exercising in a park like a golf estate or something like that.
So if one actually looks at that specific page, it says beaches and public parks. Interestingly enough, it refers to private and public game reserves. So the use of the word private is there, meaning that if anyone actually had intended to block off any sort of public, any private institutions or private areas, it would have probably been specifically mentioned here.
Where are you, Bruno? Which regulation?
So page 10 of the PDF, page 9 of the regulations.
Oh, I thought I was casinos, nightclubs.
Yes. So if you keep scrolling down, M is beaches and public parks, and G it refers to private game reserves. Yes, I agree with Greg. It would seem to be in order.
Yeah.
Yes,
because
but
it amounts to a. Sorry, Silna.
Sorry, Airbnb for holiday purposes, definitely out. Sorry, I just saw that one again. Definitely, that's short-term, longer-term. Holiday isn't a thing. Nobody's having fun right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Greg, you were saying about the park still?
I was just going to say, essentially, it would be a private park, and is legitimately accessed. And Bruno's logic is obviously correct.
Yes, that is what I am thinking. What else do we have in the? I don't think we're going to talk about all the morbid things like funerals. We don't really have to talk too much about anything else around schooling or anything. Do you guys have anything else that you specifically think is worth discussing?
I think there's going to be a lot of questions. Maybe I'm just anticipating this, but a lot of very specific industries are going to come in and ask, oh, but what about us? You didn't mention us. So I think maybe just to clarify, we're approaching this from a completely different angle than we used to in the past. So again, it's not who can. Now the question is who can't. And if we didn't, so if you go through that table and you're not there, there's a very good chance that you'd be able to go. From a property perspective, I think, my personal opinion, property inspectors, go for it. Estate agents, go for it. Repair persons, go for it. Renovations, go for it. What am I missing? Yeah, I mean, those are the general ones that
domestic service you mentioned earlier on. Domestic service, that appears to be on. There doesn't appear to be a limitation. Where did we see that thing about private transport? Was that simply in anticipation? That doesn't appear to have survived into these regulations.
No. So it would definitely be allowed. Let's move to that, because I think this is regulation 36 is actually why everybody is watching us.
Oh yes, of course.
Very, with great excitement. So when you start reading regulation 36, it says a person may not be evicted from his or her land or home during lockdown levels. Guys, it says subject to regulation 2. So subject to regulation 36.2, which says a court may grant an eviction order, and it may stay the execution of the order until the end of lockdown level 3. You can definitely evict. Even more so, we spoke about it. Now it says a court may stay execution, where in level 4 it was it is stayed. That is the way it is. But I think this is something very important. This question actually just came through on Facebook. I see I've done something very exciting in my internet drama. I am posting this live on my own personal page. I am so sorry, guys. I will make the video available afterwards on the Property Law Alliance page. This just happened. It's a beautiful day. But evictions can definitely be done, even more so. And I think the important conversation now is, when we are doing these evictions, we are allowed to ask the court, or at least make a case that it will not be just and equitable to stay the eviction, and we can ask the court to order the eviction immediately. Greg, as we've discussed, the court anyway usually gives people about a month before we can send the sheriff to evict. So that's probably going to be the same thing.
I would say it mostly will be. I envisage a scenario where most ordinary eviction applications will probably be granted on the basis that people leave within the normal month or until the end of alert level 3, whichever is the later, maybe. It will be easier to justify execution of an eviction earlier order prior to that in specific circumstances, a hostile hijack or takeover or invasion of property. There are certainly circumstances where a court may not wish to wait for the normal duration or even the end of alert level 3. My gut feel is that most conventional eviction orders, the courts will probably want to wait until the end of alert level 3. As I say, I can envisage circumstances we in the urgent court in 10 days with the matter where some constructed houses were invaded, meant for third parties. So that's the kind of scenario where I envisage a court may not deem fit to wait until the end of the alert level 3, but might authorize us to evict much quicker than that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so too. On the moving companies, Greg, I agree with you 100%. It's not excluded from the excluded services. So I think that's why it didn't make its way into this in this specific same way. I think it's just everything except for, well, basically hairdressers and beauticians can function.
And restaurants, yeah.
And restaurant, exactly. Everything that's not all the industries that's specifically listed in Form 2. And I can't see moving companies there, so I'm very happy that they can function completely. Hey,
I think Bruno's construction spot on. We've gone from everything prohibited but the following to everything permitted but the following, and that's I think that reflects the government finally starting to understand how an economy works.
Yes, exactly. Everything except for this, exactly. And this, and we will make the regulations available. But let's just quickly have a quick look at that again. Everything that's excluded. There we go. And consumption of food and beverages in a place of sale, so restaurants. On-site consumption of liquor, so that means you can't buy a beer and drink it outside Tops on Monday morning, right?
That was a bad habit I
had. So domestic air travel, until directions are clear on that. Passenger ships, I don't think anybody now thought, my biggest dream right now is to be on a passenger ship. I think we saw when it started, that's the one place you really don't want to be. Conference, unfortunately, the personal care guys, that's sad. I would have liked the new set of nails, I won't lie. And then public transport and the education services on that side, because there's very specific regulations, obviously. And then the tourist attractions, casinos, all the fun stuff. So basically what we're saying is everything can go except anything that's going to make us pretty and have fun.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Is that the easy? Why people pay me? I can make legislation simple.
So then, in addition to this, it's quite unfortunate the way that it's actually set out. But then that Regulation 39 regarding places and premises close to the public then also imply certain exclusions like gyms. So you kind of need to read them both at the same time. So there are some other exclusions, but these are the more specific ones that people should probably go through.
Yes. I think it's a very interesting, set of regulations, and I think people will get comfortable with it quite quickly, because I think most things are relatively back to the new normal. And I think, to be quite honest, I think most people by now realize that we are probably going to stay in lockdown level 3 for quite a long time, until we get until we see what's happening with the virus and what it's actually doing. I think by now we are also tired of regulations and new things, that we sort of forget why this is happening, and we sort of lost focus of the particular virus. And I think, especially now, having more people moving now more so than ever before, like the president said, this is in our hands now. And I think this is important now, to realize our actions, how we move and how we spread the virus, could very well have the effect that we increase the spread of the virus. And that could very well mean that we need to close off certain areas and go back into level 4 again, because the virus is spreading quicker. So I must say, for me, as much as even the 1/3 limitation we had on people in our offices has been eased, and it does seem like everybody can be back in the office. Personally, for our firm, we're still going to work remotely as far as we can, just to try and keep the virus as unspreadable as possible. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that can't be done from home, especially for us as attorneys. Our attorneys have to, our messengers have to go to court. We have to go to the sheriff, things like that. I see the sheriffs already started sending out notices today that they are opening. I specifically got one from Halfway House. I don't know what you guys are seeing, but it seems like
I saw the wine shelves at Woolworths were stocked when I went there this evening. That's what I saw.
So I'm on the sheriffs and the courts, and you saw wine. That's impressive. It's the same thing, Greg.
Jokes aside, they said that they envisage 8 million more people going back to work under this level, of the 4 odd million that went back at level 4. Now, that, of course, is wonderful, because this is now, in the context of this page, this is 8 million people who are able to earn money, all the personal self-respect issues that go with that, pay their rental, and make the economy work. So, you know, that to me is the real joy of this. And I mean, obviously, you know, keeping your comments about the taking proper care are valid and very, very important. But 8 million people being able to earn, pay their rent, make the economy work, live with the dignity that work imparts, it's just a very, very good thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
I just quickly want to mention again, guys, please don't get stuck on 36.1. We can do evictions. We've been doing evictions since level 5, even more so in level 4. So even more so in level 3. And commercial evictions has been allowed throughout. The only limitation that we have is still arbitrary evictions, but the joy of this is, for us, it's not even news, because arbitrary evictions wasn't allowed before COVID-19. So it's just nice to have it like this clearly. It's prohibited unless you have a court order ordering the evictions. Commercial evictions can definitely be executed. And when the court allows, we can even execute residential.
Absolutely. And exactly what you were saying. So that subsection 1 almost looks like it deals with arbitrary evictions. So it just speaks
That's
about
the impression I had as well, Bruno.
Yeah.
In other words, it's the general constitutional prohibition on evicting without a court order as per the legislation. Now, I think I thought that as well. I mean, I saw it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. And I think now it's important to say what Greg and Bruno was talking about now, the general constitutional prohibition. Section 26 of the Constitution says that nobody may be evicted without a court order. So that's no news for us. That's been like that in the Constitution since day one of promulgation of the Constitution. So that's actually no news for us. I think for a lot of people it looks like news, but it's really not. I can recite section 26 just like that. I won't, because that would just be weird. Well, you said verbatim, so then then I might as well.
Sorry, Silna, Greg, I need to step away if that's fine.
I'm done as well.
Perfect.
Actually, I need to do something.
That was brilliant. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, guys.
I just once again want to apologize. I just did that as well.
No.
But I do want to apologize for the cock up tonight.
Hey.